Hello, hello. So did you spot me there earlier accidentally? Oopsie daisy. Right. Hello. So happy Monday. I always have to think about what day of the week it is. I don't know why, but I do. First, as always, can somebody just let me know that you can hear me? That would be a really good start. So just something along the lines of, hello, Gigi, we are hearing your crisp British accent nice and clearly here in wherever it is that you are. So then I get to know you can hear me and I get to know where you are in the world. So come on, there's a couple of you there already. I can see Star Select 2012, Shalini and Matilda are there. So let me know that you can hear me. Let me just flip to YouTube where it comes through faster. Nope, you're still not saying you can hear me. Can anybody hear me? Please tell me you can hear me. I can see you're asking questions. Is there anybody out there? Oh, right. Okay. Oh, Universal Gnome to the rescue once again. Good. Okay. I was starting to panic. Don't do that to me. I'm a high anxiety type person. And this whole thing, honestly, causes me so much anxiety when it comes to, is the technology going to work? Is anyone going to show up? So, don't make it worse for me, please. Right. So, hello. I don't know what's wrong with me. Okay. So, we're going to give it a couple of minutes, let a little bit of time go for a few more people to show up. So, whilst I'm waiting, Shalini, do I remember you? Well, I certainly do remember the little image on your YouTube. So, yes, I guess that I do remember you, more so because of the visual than because of the name. But yeah. So, wait for a few more people to come along. So whilst we're doing that, why don't you just let me know where you are coming from? I can see someone's obviously from NYC, from New York, which is Shoyu NYC. So from New York. So New York, such a wonderful place. I'm sorry, I've started getting hysterical a little bit early. We've got Christopher from Nigeria. Welcome, Christopher. Matilda 9. I don't even know. What is that number? What would that number be? That would be 900,004. Matilda 900,004. There must be a lot of Matildas on YouTube. Where are you from, Matilda? We'd love to know. Universal Gnome is back. We've got Pat 1679. Oh, did something important happen in 1679, Pat? I'll have to Google that afterwards. I'm curious now. Who else do we have and where are you from? Sean Toohey. Oh, you're from the west coast of Canada. That's quite an Irish name, Sean. I was about to assume that you were from Ireland, but no, west coast of Canada. Okay. Who else do we have and where are you from? Lone Monk is here. Hola. Who else do we have? Okay, from Norwich. Ah, yes, Universal Gnome. You're from Norwich. I do remember that. Yep. Okay. Yeah, Norwich. Some reason I was thinking Ipswich. Then I can't remember. Is Ipswich in Norwich? Oh, actually, I'm showing up my ignorance of my own, of the my knowledge of the British geography, which is embarrassing. So I shouldn't even do that. Okay, so why don't we get going then? Because we are a good few minutes in now, about 5 minutes in. So let me just do my intro. So you all know I am Gigi, and yeah, I am the Amazon interview whiz. I was a senior leader at Amazon for quite a few years and also an interview bar raiser. Now, if you've heard all of this spiel before, do feel free to go and get a biscuit and a cup of coffee or something, or a cookie. Sorry, if you're in the US, it's a cookie. Here, a cookie is a type of biscuit. Biscuit is the broader category. A cookie is a subcategory. Anyway, yes, what was I saying? I interviewed a bar raiser at Amazon for quite a long time. The big difference between what you'll hear from me and what you'll hear from other coaches, Amazon interview preppers on YouTube and elsewhere is, in the main, with the exception of one that I know of, I'm the only bar raiser. And the difference between a bar raiser and all of the other interviewers is you get access to a much broader spectrum of interviewing than anybody else in Amazon. Bar raisers have to be involved in the final stage of the interview process. You're a specially trained, qualified group of people, and your job is to oversee that final stage of interviewing. And regardless of where you work in the business, you can oversee any interview, any loop, any panel, whether it's tech or non-tech, although you tend to have a specialty. Mine was non-tech because I'm a marketer by background. But whether it's tech or non-tech, any job family, almost any level up to, I think, 1 or 2 above you, you can get some exceptions to 2 above you to be a bar raiser, you can do it. Whereas if you're a normal hiring manager in Amazon interviewing, you maybe interview for your own team, maybe some kind of adjacent teams, and maybe you'll get onto graduate or MBA recruitment programs. If you're a recruiter, you'll be obviously interviewing maybe for recruiters to fill up your own teams and also your own area of speciality. So recruiters in Amazon will all have an area of specialism, be it recruiting for finance, marketing, vendor managers, loss prevention, solutions architects, SDEs, whatever. They have a specialty. Whereas a bar raiser, you'll do anything, you'll go anywhere. So I have interviewed tech and non-tech. I have interviewed across many different countries around the globe. I've interviewed across dozens and dozens of different job families, and it gives you a unique perspective on the Amazon interview process, which is actually far less linear than you would ever imagine it is. Teams do things very, very differently. And it's only with the benefit of bar raising that you get to see that broad spread. So I am in a unique position to really understand what it takes to get hired wherever you are in Amazon. And I personally gave the go to hire hundreds of Amazonians. I started my YouTube channel because when I was at Amazon, I could tell the difference between people who had expert coaching and those that didn't. And at the time, there weren't very many of people on YouTube doing what it is that I do. Looked it up, discovered it's pretty expensive to have one-to-one coaching, particularly if someone's an expert, right? My time, it's worth having, trust me, but it's not cheap and therefore not everyone can afford it. So I decided I would create a YouTube channel to try and make my type of expertise available to as many people as possible. Then when I left Amazon, what I then did was set up my own interview preparation kind of business where I've created digital courses. So you can get like 10 hours of complete expert interview preparation about everything you need to know from an Amazon interview for about the cost of 1 hour with a probably solid interview coach. So make it so much more accessible to as many people as possible. I'm trying to get my expertise to as many people as possible. So I have my academy, I do my YouTube channel, I have these free YouTube lives, I try and provide useful tips on LinkedIn, Twitter, you name it. So that's it. What we're going to do today is you're going to ask me your questions on the little question comments box on the right. I'll try and pick ones that I think are as useful as I can for everybody. Please don't ask me very, very specific questions to your particular job family and your particular interview, because as I said, teams do it completely differently and thousands of different maybe hundreds of different job families and thousands of different roles. No one person could know them all. So there may be specific questions that I simply can't ask. Equally, don't ask me generic questions. Hey, Gigi, I've got an interview tomorrow. Any tips? Well, sure. Like 30 hours of them all on my YouTube channel. So please don't ask me generic questions, but I will attempt to answer as many questions as I possibly can in the time. Please do stay till the end. I have an amazing giveaway. I'm confident it is the best Amazon interview giveaway you will get on the web. So hang around until the end and you will be able to snaffle that for yourself. Right. All that said then, why don't we just get going? And I will start picking up questions. Do bang them in there. Don't be shy. We are all friends here. So, okay. Let's just pick this one. First one up. Okay. Oh, woo. Hello. Right, hang on. Let me just sort this out because that's not going to work. Get my chin cut off. Right, that's not perfect. I'm having trouble with my camera these days. I'm going to go and buy a new one because I'm not a fan of this one. But there we go. I kind of look like I'm way off center, don't I? Right. So, hey, Gigi, thank you so much for all your help so far. You are absolutely welcome. Can I please re-hit on why Amazon? Okay. You found some talking about why Amazon is about why Amazon plus why this team, but what is a good answer for this? Okay, so Star Select 2012, I had a whole video about this on my YouTube channel. So go check that out, because then you can watch it at your leisure and pause it and repeat it, etc. I think the point to make on the why Amazon question is there's no good answer. There are some bad answers, but anybody that's asking you why Amazon, they don't really know what they want to hear, because if they knew what they wanted to hear, they'd ask you a specific question. And they're not asking you a specific question. They're asking you this generic kind of tell me why you're here type question. So what I will say to you is just a couple of things to avoid. And then my YouTube video gives you a selection of things that you can think about to choose from that make sense for you, because your why Amazon is clearly not going to be the same as my why Amazon. We have to come up with answers that are real and reflect ourselves, not just nonsense cookie cutter answers that we've taken off the internet somewhere. It's got to be true to you. But what you must avoid is some of those kind of bland, uninspiring answers that everybody comes up with, like Amazon's so innovative, I really want to join an innovative company. Oh, heard it a million times before. Or, oh, I just admire the leadership principles so much, they resonate with me. Oh, heard it all before. Now, it doesn't mean to say that, it's not reasonable to say that the leadership principles resonate with you. They probably do. Otherwise, you wouldn't feel that you were attracted to Amazon as an organization. But everyone's heard it all before. And if someone's asking you to spend your time, your precious interview time, talking about something, you may as well talk about something that's interesting and unique and specific to you, rather than the bland kind of stuff that everybody says. So I would say avoid those things. Clearly don't say, I just want a job and I just want to get into Amazon, and then I want, to use Amazon to have an amazing career, because the hiring manager will be like, okay, but why do you want this job? And that's to your point about the team. So go check out my video. There's, I think, 4 or 5 different groups of things that you can maybe think about why you would want to work in Amazon, why you would want to work in that team. Please go check those out. Okay, moving on then. Okay, so Matilda, hello Matilda, 900,004. Oh, you made it past the phone screen through the academy and you're now onto Loop. That is exciting, Matilda, 900,004. What's your next question? So you said you have 3 questions. I didn't check them before I brought them up, so I hope they're not risque. You have 3 questions to ask. Oh, for your Loop interview coming up. 1, will I go through the tell me about yourself and why Amazon again during the Loop? Okay. And 2, will the hiring manager be in the Loop? Right. So will someone ask you again, tell me about yourself and why Amazon? Sadly, probably. If you saw my latest updated version of the Tell Me About Yourself video, you'll know I absolutely detest those questions. They were never intended to be part of the original Amazon interview process design, and I'm baffled as to why they've crept in, but they have, and everyone's asking them now. I don't know why. I don't know what value they bring, but I think you're very likely to get them in your Loop, but they're much more warm up questions. By the time you've made it to Loop, somebody higher up the process has decided that they feel good about your motivation for joining Amazon, and their knowledge of who you are is sufficient to believe that you could be a good candidate. You're not going to Loop without someone really believing you've got a good chance of passing. So by the time you get to Loop, your interviewers should really be spending the overwhelming majority of their time asking you questions that are either functional competency questions, depending on the role that you're going for, and the behavioral questions, so that they can gather insight on whether you raise the bar on the leadership principles. So yes, they will probably ask them, but I would say keep your answer down to like no more than 1 minute. Use the answer that you used in the early round and then just synthesize it up to literally 1 minute. So they're forced to move on to the questions that actually provide evidence. Okay, so that was your question number 1. Question number 2, will your hiring manager be in the Loop? They should be. Now, I say they should be because there are exceptional circumstances where the hiring manager doesn't come to the Loop. Maybe like life things, you know, they're off on annual leave or vacation or paternity leave, or something's come up and they can't join. But as a matter of principle, the hiring manager is supposed to be there, because ultimately that's where the decision is going to be made to hire you. And the hiring manager is going to be the person that takes the brunt if it's a bad decision. So yes, they are supposed to be there. The other exception is when the role that you are applying for is a very kind of scaled role. So junior sales roles, brand manager type roles, where those types of roles are really very similar in scope. You know, the roles themselves are literally cookie cutter roles. Anybody could sit in any brand manager role and it would be the same job. So the hiring manager in that regard could trust anybody else on that loop to be able to know that you can raise the bar on the leadership principles, because they would just be so familiar with the role, because it's the same role regardless of which of the 20 open recs as a brand manager you're actually recruiting for. So that was question number 2. You said you had 3, but I can't see your third. So maybe I will come across it in a couple of minutes. Right, moving on then. Oh, scrolling. Right, here we go. Is that LL? Is it I? Oh, it's not L. It could be LL, couldn't it? It could be 2 lowercase L's, or it could be II. It's definitely not 1. So II chicken pie, as they would say where I come from. Well, not quite where I come from, but anyway. So can you use examples from screening round in the panel round? I wouldn't. If you could possibly avoid it, and I say this all of the time, if you can possibly avoid repeating the same example at any point through your interview process, you should, because Amazon is looking for the broadest range of data as possible to show that you consistently and repeatedly across your career perform at a high level. So if you can avoid repeating and you show that you never have to repeat anything because you are so amazing and you perform at such a high level and so consistently, they are going to be absolutely thrilled. Now, that said, in many people's cases, that's just not possible. And I am asking the impossible. And that's understood and that's accepted, particularly for the more junior people who are applying, who have less career history behind them. They've just got less to pull from in order to come up with these repeated examples. If you're old like me and you've been working for 25 years, you've got less of an excuse. So if you are junior, or if perhaps the example you gave at screening is so big and juicy and so packed full of leadership principles that you can bring it back again and reshape it to reflect a different leadership principle, then although I have said try and avoid it, if you do it that way, it's better than just repeating the same thing in exactly the same way over again between early rounds and later rounds. Okay, so no kind of instant black mark ejection for repeating. But as I said, if you can avoid it, I really do recommend trying to avoid it. Oh, Low Monk, you like my new hair. Thank you very much. But it's not new hair. It was there before. I've just lost some of it that was there with it. Okay. Moving on then. Okay. Hey, Shalini. So you didn't get any response from your interview. Okay, you completed your interview on January the 11th. Okay, that was quite a while ago. And you mailed your recruiter and no response, feeling depressed. Oh, Shalini, I'm sorry you're feeling depressed. Okay, so you know the SLA is 2 working days for early rounds and then 5 working days for loop. Either way, you're clearly a long way over that. So here's my next suggestion for you, Shalini, if you haven't done it already. Go back and have a look at the list of people that actually interviewed you. I think you were at Loop. Go back and look at the list of people that interviewed you. If you know which one of those was the hiring manager, I would suggest reach out to them on LinkedIn and just be very polite and say to them, you know, you had your interview on this date. You really were expecting to have heard feedback by now. Can they help you get that feedback from the recruiter? I've given this advice to candidates many times, and more often than not, the hiring manager does take ownership and gives the recruiter a bit of a poke. So that would be my next suggestion. Have a go at trying that. Again, I would just say go to your recruiter again directly as well, but try and cover your bases by contacting some people who had actually interviewed you and spoken to you. So I do have my fingers crossed for you, and I'm sorry you're depressed. Don't be depressed. Don't be depressed. Okay. Oh, somebody from north of Spain, Alejandro. That's a great name. Alejandro Garcia Landarte is what I'm going for. I love that. That's such fun to say. Okay. Oh, we've got Eunice from Madrid in Spain. Gosh, the Spanish are in the house. Oh, you liked Twitter yesterday, Lomonk. Oh, I'm pleased you joined. So I've been doing a series of Twitter spaces. I'm pretty new to it. We did 4 over the past 4 weeks, which was amazing. We had like 2,000 people join in our first Twitter space. So next time we're going to do another series, but it won't be for a little while. But I'll post it here on the community, and then you'll know that it's coming up. Okay, so Alejandro, I'm just going to read your question now. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So, hola. Buenas tardes. Oh, it's buenas noches, isn't it? Because you're 1 hour ahead of me, but I'm not telling you to go to bed. Anyway, boring. Moving on. You're applying for a brand specialist. Yep. Okay. I'm very familiar with that. So what's the normal time between doing the online assessment and hearing from the recruiter? There is no normal time. I think I mentioned at the beginning of the session that there's just huge variability in the processes across teams. So there literally is no normal time between any of the individual stages. It's just a function of how much work your recruiter has on their plate, really. So there is no answer to that question, Alejandro, I'm afraid. You have a second question. Yes, you are applying to a junior position. It seems that some leadership principles don't apply to my role because they are more senior. So yes, as a brand specialist, I would tell you to ignore hire and develop the best. I would also tell you to ignore strive to be Earth's best employer. No, that's not what I mean. I would tell you to ignore success and scale, bring broad responsibility. Up until a couple of weeks ago, I'd have said ignore strive to be Earth's best employer. But the whole point about strive to be Earth's best employer is it's really badly worded. Because it suggests that the only people responsible for it are the people who directly employ people, i.e. managers. And that's not the point of strive to be Earth's best employer. It really should be called something along the lines of strive to have Earth's best work environment, because there's lots of behaviors in that leadership principle that are about normal individual everyday workers trying to help their colleagues have an enjoyable and supportive working environment. It's not just management's responsibility to do that. And I hope you would also agree with me on that one, Alejandro. So I can't tell you just to discard that because it's for management, because it's absolutely not for management. It's just really badly worded as a leadership principle. Another one that I think you could probably discard is frugality. Generally, it's finance roles and procurement and things like that that focus on frugality. So there are definitely a few that you can decide to lose. My big tip is just ask your recruiter. I'd say about 50-50 when I tell people to ask their recruiters what the most important leadership principles are. 50-50, they get the answer back. So first thing you should do is ask your recruiter. Second thing you should do is a job description deconstruction for yourself. I have 2 videos about how to do that on my YouTube channel. There's a playlist for it. And then the third thing, if you really, really want kind of as much assurance as possible, I do offer a service to do a job description deconstruction for you. But do try the first two first. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Moving on then. Yeah, Matilda, can I advise what LP questions would be asked for an L5 area manager at Loop? No, I don't have all the job descriptions memorized, I'm afraid. So I couldn't tell you off the top of my head which leadership principles you should focus on, but it will all be in your job description. So just as I said to Alejandro to have a look at his job description, you should do exactly the same as I just advised him. And will each interviewer ask you, tell me about yourself and white Amazon questions? That would be exhausting. It would be, and it's pointless and it's stupid, and they'll never learn anything new than the person before them. And they can't use that data for anything useful anyway. So I hate those questions. I hate them. They're stupid, but we know that I hate them. Yeah, everyone lacks an imagination. What can I say? So yeah, they probably will ask you. I hope they don't ask you both of those, because gosh, that's like a double time waster as far as I'm concerned. But again, just have a 1 minute answer, prepared, and move on as quickly as possible. And then you can spend your time doing the useful questions. Okay. All right. AVPMPM. Oh, I'm glad you like the haircut. Oh, it's a Mohican, actually. Should I show you that bit as well? Look, if I turn, can you see? It's actually a Mohawk. I'm not so sure I like the back, actually. I'm undecided, but hey-ho. Okay, quick question. Are they supposed to tell you if you don't make it through after loop, or is silence enough response? Oh, yeah, they are supposed to tell you. Silence is not enough response at all, at all, at all, at all, at all. And actually, sometimes silence is not the response that you think it is. So I've had some of my academy candidates who haven't heard anything for weeks and weeks after their loop, well over the SLA. And when they finally heard from the recruiter, it's been an offer. So any of you out there, if you haven't yet heard, please don't assume that it's bad news. You just have to assume that your recruiter is ridiculously busy and hasn't found the time to come back to you. Or maybe even your debrief didn't yet happen because something went horribly wrong. So yes, absolutely, you should always get an answer, and you should never accept silence. And if you've still got silence, contact the recruiter. And if you've still got silence, contact the hiring manager. And if you've still got silence, contact somebody else that was on your loop. And if you've still got silence, if you wanna go up the value chain, LinkedIn makes people very accessible. There are senior recruiters and HRBPs and things like that on LinkedIn, and they can all find each other through the Amazon internal systems. So if you still got silence and you're not happy with it, as you should not be, keep going on up until you get the answer that you deserve. That's my advice. Okie dokie. Moving on. Okay. Okay, right. Oh, I'm glad you said this, Universal Gnome. So you did your loop last week for a senior BDM, which I'm going to assume is a business development manager for all of you folks out there who don't know that acronym. You didn't get it. I'm sorry to hear it, Universal Gnome. The recruiter called you and gave you great feedback. That's good. And he said you're recycled. That's brilliant. So we'll be in touch. Right, let me read your next part, which I can see is a little bit further down, and then I'll come back and just explain to everybody what recycled is. He recommends that you work on going into more detail in your actions, but you gave great results. Right, so two things here then. First of all, just so everybody understands what a recycle is. So a recycle is where you do your interview, you're at loop, and you don't make it to the role, but the team actually think that you could potentially be a good Amazonian. Maybe this role wasn't quite for you, or they knew that the information was possibly there, but you just didn't demonstrate it on the day. And so they want to give you another chance, and you get recycled, as opposed to if they think you were a million miles away and then they do and not inclined, no recycle. I do have a video about this on my YouTube channel. Surprise, surprise. Cool. I think it's called The Possible Outcomes of Your Amazon Interview. So where that now takes me to everybody, and particularly Universal Gnome, is I do a lot of interview coaching. And I can tell you that my consistent feedback that I give to candidates is they do not provide enough detail. It is a behavioral interview, right? So it's not just what you did, but it's how you did it. The Amazon leadership principles have a number of behaviors that they are looking for you to talk about how you've demonstrated them. Please Stay until the end and you'll get my Customer Obsession Leadership Principle Masterclass. And when you read about or learn about the facets and then what the interviewer is looking for, you will understand what I'm talking about. They want the how did you do things? What did you say? How did you say it? How did you prepare for the interview? What things did you anticipate? All sorts of things, but it's about the how. And you can't get to the how without going into detail. And folks, you cannot get into detail if you are targeting answers that are 2 to 3 minutes long, right? You cannot get to the level of detail Amazon wants if you're trying to squeeze it all into 2 or 3 minutes. So ignore what you're hearing on the internet about how short your answers need to be. What you need to do is make sure that you understand the leadership principles, understand the behaviors that they're looking for, and then if you have appropriate behavioral information, put it in your answer. If you have information that is necessary context for framing the behavioral interview, the behavioral evidence, put it in your answer. Broadly speaking, you can comfortably have an answer that runs anywhere between 5 and I'll even say up to 10 minutes. If you're pretty senior like me and you'll have big, complicated stories, you can easily and comfortably run to 10 minutes for your narrative. Anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes, you will be fine, but you have to get to the detail, because if all you do is say, I organized a meeting, at the meeting, I managed to convince this person that we should execute this thing that they didn't want to do, and we went on and executed, I have no idea how you behaved. Were you a complete idiot at that meeting? Did you shout at this person? Did you bully them into submission? Don't know. Were you incredibly mature? Were you very sensitive at the meeting? Did you really work to identify what their objections were and then work through those objections with them, helping them understand why those objections really aren't an issue, or maybe taking on board some of those objections and saying, yes, actually, that's fair, and pivoting your plan to reflect what would appear to be a new learning to you? I wouldn't have a clue because you didn't tell me how you did it. So universal gnome, I suspect that is exactly what your recruiter is telling you, because I can tell you that 9 out of 10 people that I do mock interviews with, I have to give back that exact feedback. So well done for getting a recycle. You've got some great guidance from your recruiter as to how to improve your performance. So go for it. Apply again. Give yourself some time to work on your stories a little bit. Apply again, and then fingers crossed it will be yours next time. Okay, moving on then. Just checking the questions, right? I'm going to try and skip through. Oh, right. So conscious of time, and we have so many, a squidoodle number of questions here, but I'm going to pause momentarily and say, ask not what Gigi can do for you, but what you can do for Gigi. Did you like what I did there? I did that in the moment. Okay, I need your help. I put a lot of effort into this channel and into these lives for you, totally free. But in order for my content to surface to you and all of the other folks out there who want my type of quality support for free, YouTube needs signals. So whenever you watch any of my videos, when you watch this live stream, I really need you to put a little comment in, hey, Gigi, that was awesome, or a question if you have one, or give it a thumbs up, because that's positive signals that YouTube consumes and says, yeah, Gigi knows what she's talking about, and surfaces my content. So for the next kind of 2 minutes, I'm going to ask you to please go down to that little thumbs up button that you can see there below the screen and give me a little bit of a thumbs up. And whilst you do that, I am just going to play you a little video so that you can just kind of pass the time whilst you do that. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, go. Live the stream. Live the stream. Live the stream. Okay, I'm back. So hopefully, if you did, thank you very much. If you didn't, that's really mean. Why would you not? And if you've been here a few times, I'm sorry, those are probably getting boring now. I do need to do some new ones. So I'm busy at the moment, but I will try and get around to it. Okay. So I'll do this one very quickly. how long does it take to schedule the loop interview? Usually it's been a week and they went silent. So that's the same answer as to how long does it take to get back to you after the online for an interview. It completely depends on how busy your recruiter is. There is no normal. No normal at all. Okay, then this one, can I please tell you what qualities they look for a TPM? It is in your job description. Please do the deconstruction. That is, they don't look for qualities, they look for leadership principles. And the leadership principles are in your job description. So please do go check that out and dive deep. Okay, moving on then. What else do we have? Okay, yeah, let's do grad very quickly. Oshin. So it's very different for grads. I'll run through this quickly. So usually the graduate scheme is entry-level roles. You'll come in, you'll probably do a day with a whole bunch of other grads. You will have interviews and people asking you leadership principle questions, but you'll also have kind of practical things to do. So maybe case studies and things like that, and little bits of group work that you'll have to do. You won't meet a bar raiser. They don't get involved in the actual interview process when it comes to grads. What then happens is all of the people that have interviewed everybody over the course of that day gets into a giant meeting room. God, there's like 30 of them. The bar raiser sits in the middle. The candidate's name goes up on the board, and then they discuss the candidate and come to a conclusion as to whether they are bar raising or not. So it's a slightly different actual experience, but in terms of what you're being assessed on and your ability to raise the bar and the leadership principles, that stays exactly the same. So good luck, Oshin. I really hope I pronounced your name correctly. Okay. Moving on then. Okay, quick one here then for Matilda 900,004. Is an L5 area manager entitled to relocation allowance? Hard to say, actually. Usually anything below an L5 isn't entitled to relocation, but I do know that area managers get moved all over the country. So in the US anyway, I don't think it's quite the same here in Europe. So don't know, actually, is my answer to that one. You really need to check with your recruiter. Okay, so for a product manager, can you expect to have a functional question in the first hiring manager interview? And can I provide an example of a functional PM question that would be asked? So I would say, actually, if it's a non-tech PM role, no. I wouldn't actually expect a non-tech PM role to be asked functional questions, because your scenarios that you use for the leadership principle, the behavioral questions, should be enough for your interviewer to know whether you know what you're doing as a product manager. But if they did ask you a functional question, I would imagine the type of functional question that you might get would be something along the lines of, tell me what you would do in terms of trying to understand the test. Tell me what you do if you were trying to test an improvement in an order flow. How would you run that experiment? What type of metrics would you be looking for? And how would you define your success criteria? Those would be the type of kind of questions that I would be asking if I wanted to ensure that a product manager knew how to do that particular type of work in product. But for a non-tech product manager, I wouldn't actually expect you to be asked functional questions. Okay, moving on then. Oh, who else do we have here? Yeah, here's a good question. Epiroc USA. Should you inform the recruiter if you already have offers from another FANG company? I would. If it was me, I would. Now, the reason why I would is not because it's going to make the panel want you anymore, because it's not. They will make their own decision as to whether they think you're raising the bar or not. But I wouldn't actually, it doesn't matter whether it's another FANG company or any other company, actually. I would always tell the recruiter if I'm sitting on an offer, because number one, I've got a deadline for when I need to go back to that organization and tell them whether I'm going to accept their offer. So you need to tell your recruiter what deadlines you're working to, because then they can advise the panel and try and organize your debrief and your interview to get you an answer ahead of the deadline of your offer that you already have. It's useful for leverage if you do actually get an offer at the end of it, but please don't think that you can use it as a way of trying to make yourself look more attractive to Amazon, because they don't care. They'll make their own decision. Okay. We've got Adriana who's here. Welcome, welcome. Lovely to see you. Who else do we have? Okay. Okay. So everyone, please be careful with acronyms. So Gilmary Burnell, hello, for PGM roles. I don't know what a PGM role is. There are thousands of roles and hundreds of job families in Amazon. I can guess the obvious ones, but that one I can't guess. So if you want to ask me the question again and tell me what the actual role is, then I will try and answer it. Okay, I don't really understand this one. Muru Murugs, hello, good evening. You attended 9 good interviews. You had 9 interviews? 9? In your loop, you had your final stage, you had 9 interviews, because that is a lot. 8 was excellent. You thought only 1 was average, but that interviewer asked questions, wantedly fail me. Could I please help you how you can know the reason for failure? All right, look. First of all, I'm going to say I wasn't at the interview, but I strongly, strongly suspect that no interviewer went out to intentionally make you fail. That's pointless. And every Amazonian goes into an interview hoping that the person will succeed, because if they do, then they don't have to interview for that role anymore. And interviewing is a burden on top of your day job. So Again, I wasn't there. I didn't experience what you experienced, but I think it's very unlikely that any interviewer would go into an interview purposely trying to make a candidate fail. Just because they asked you tough questions and they really wanted to dig into the information you had, that doesn't mean they want you to fail. That means they're doing their jobs properly and making sure that they get the information that they need. Can I help you know the reason for failure? No. Number one, I wasn't there, so I couldn't possibly know the reason why you failed myself. And Amazon has a policy where they don't share feedback after interviews. 2 reasons, I'll skip over them quite quickly. The first being to avoid legal issues. A story goes that they used to provide feedback until a couple of people heard something they didn't like and got a little bit litigious. So Amazon's first priority is to its shareholders. It can't expose itself to litigation. And then the second thing is to protect their interviewers. As an interviewer, you have to feel free and comfortable to say whatever it is you want to say about that candidate. And if you worry, or if there's a risk that those words will get back to that candidate and they can guess or do guess that it's you that said it, you are openly exposed on LinkedIn and all sorts of other social platforms. And although the vast majority of people would not have malicious intent and would not hound you and drag your name through the mud on social media, I can guarantee you there will always be 1 or 2 that does. So for those 2 reasons, Amazon does not provide feedback. I do have a video, Muru, on my YouTube channel where I try and give you some guidance as to how you can create your own feedback by really being vocally self-critical about your interview performance. So go check out that video and hopefully that might help you self-analyze yourself a little bit. Okay. All right, moving on. Got 15 minutes left. I'm just jumping to the bottom. Lots of questions, so I will try and get through as many as I can. I'm going to try choosing people who haven't asked questions yet. So I'm sorry if I jump over you. I don't mean to be rude. I'm just trying to give everybody a chance. Okay. You have an interview after 2 days. You can't see anymore the job description on the website. Does that mean they've already chosen for this position? Maybe. It's not a definite, but it's a maybe. So it's only been 2 days since you had your interview. So hopefully you will hear back from your recruiter. Maybe, but maybe not. You know, there are lots of reasons why job descriptions come down. I've myself taken down job descriptions because I realized I hadn't written them very well, and the candidates that were coming through were not necessarily the type of candidates that really I wanted. So I took them down to rewrite them and put them back up again. So it could be something else. So, you know, could be not. Okay. Oh, Victor, all right. Victor. So how difficult is it to apply for an internal position at Amazon? Well, it's not hard to apply for the internal position. Usually what you would do is you would have you'd speak to the hiring manager first before you actually put in your application. You'd also speak to your own manager, ideally, before you put in your application. And then once you've had a quick chat with the hiring manager and they've thought, yeah, broadly speaking, you look like you could potentially be a decent candidate, you can then put in your application. What's the process? Actually, it's exactly the same process as the external process, with the exception of you don't have a bar raiser because you aren't required to raise the bar. Internal applications just have to meet the bar of the role that they're applying for. In the vast majority of cases, you would be making a horizontal application to move positions. It would be very, very rare and unusual to make a job application and apply for a role more senior than the one that you're currently in. So I don't know kind of how I can scale for you how easy or hard it is, but because all you have to do is meet the bar rather than raise the bar, it is easier to secure a role from internally than it would be for someone externally to secure that exact same role. Okay, I hope that helps. Moving on then. Okay, Philippe. Okay, should you expect more general questions, not many LPs on the phone screen? So this goes back to my point earlier. In the early stages, although the process wasn't built to do this, what definitely is happening, I can hear this from my candidates, certainly more so than ever it was in my day when I was there, I don't know, it's like a year and a half ago now. Early screen interviewers are talking about why Amazon, tell me about yourself, walk me through your resume, and then they'll get onto either a behavioral question or a functional competency question if you're going for a technical role. So I would say, based on the feedback that I'm getting from candidates now, that in the early rounds and the early phone screens, you won't get many behavioral questions. But of course, you can't predict which ones you will get and which ones you won't get. So you're going to have to be prepared one way or another to cover all of those possible scenarios. Should you save your best examples for Loop? Well, what happens if you don't get through to Loop? Right? You haven't had a chance to get your best examples out. No, never save your best examples for Loop because you might never get there. You need your best examples to get you to Loop and then deal with that problem should it arise. It'll be a nice problem to have if you've made it to Loop and you've used your best examples. So no is my simple answer to that one. Okay. Copilot is love. I cannot tell you what the best competitive coding or development is because I am not a coder. So I have no opinion on that. But what I will tell you is there is a great group of people who are sdeskills.com. There are a whole bunch of SDMs and SDEs and solutions architects that form a group, and they will give you advice to the end of your toe tips about where you should go to develop your skills on coding. So please go there. sdeskills.com. Okay, moving on. Right, I am going to jump a few people because I can see I've answered questions for these people before. Oh, right. Somebody doesn't know what Loop is. Sorry, my bad. So Loop is the final stage of interviewing in the Amazon interview process, in theory. I won't go into the why in theory, but it's supposed to be the final step. People call it Loop. People call it final round. People call it panel. It's got all sorts of different names, but it's the final stage where you end up meeting quite a few Amazonians in very quick succession, either across one day or across 2 days. I'm sorry, serious viewer, I do make some assumptions about a level of knowledge, which I probably shouldn't do. So thank you for putting me in my place. Okay, moving on then. Yeah. Okay. So there's people asking me to tell them what leadership principles they should be preparing for particular job roles. I'm sorry, I haven't memorized them all. There are thousands of different job families in Amazon, and different job families, even within the different job families, hiring managers want different leadership principles as top priority. So I can't answer those questions. Please do read your job description. It's absolutely all written there in your job description for you to see. So learn the leadership principles, study them closely, understand what they are all about, what behaviors they're looking for, and you will be able to read a job description and recognize which leadership principles they care the most about. Check out on my YouTube channel my playlist where I deconstruct job descriptions live, and hopefully that will be a guide for you. But it is all there. Honestly, it's all there for the finding. Okay. What else do we have? Okay. Okay. Hey, oh, what a cute picture. Oh, you and your family. That's lovely. Oh, that's lovely. Okay. Can I please tell you what questions you can ask your interviewer? You can ask whatever question you want. Awesome health. I mean, obviously not personal questions, but you know that already, right? The whole point about question time is for you to have the opportunity to gather the data that you need to decide should they offer you a role if you want it. Do you want to do that work? Do you want to work in that team? Do you want to work for that manager? Do you want to work in Amazon? Question time is the time for you to find out if all of that is going to suit your needs and your life. So you go ahead and ask any question that you want. The questions that you ask in an Amazon interview should not be used as evidence in order to make a decision to hire you or not. It is supposed to be your time and a safe time. Okay. Oh my goodness. Harish. Are you an Amazon Interview Wiz Academy member? Whoop! And you made it through seven rounds. That's incredible. You are absolutely welcome, Harish. So congratulations, Harish. Crowd goes wild. I obviously love to bring people up when they do have these success stories, because obviously it makes me feel happy because I put a damn lot of work into this, but also it gives them a little bit of accolade and a little bit of moment in the sun. So congratulations. You obviously put a lot of work into landing that job and it has paid off. So have an amazing Amazon career. I know you will. And don't forget me when you're on the inside. Okay. Thanks. Okay. Right. Moving on now. Oh, Rob T's back. Rob. I love it when people come back and say hi. It feels like friends because, of course, it's weird sat here in this room, completely empty room, chatting to myself. So when people come back, it feels like old friends are coming over for tea. So, hey, Rob, thanks for coming over. Would you like milk and 2 sugars in your tea, or are you more a coffee person? Thank you for coming back. And I hope it's going really well for you at Amazon. Would love to know what you're doing. Connect with me on LinkedIn and fill me in on how it's all going. I would love to hear a little bit more detail. Yeah, do that. LinkedIn. Gigi, the Amazon Interview Wiz. Okay, let us move on. Conscious of time, but I've got 5 minutes. Oh my Lord. Okay. Let me see. Okay. Okay. Gil Mary's question was about being a program manager. I have never seen a program manager using an acronym of PGM, I have to say. It's usually prog MGR. So that's why that didn't make any sense. So usually if you're applying for a program manager role, you're actually applying for a program manager role for a particular role. I've never seen a job description that just says program manager and doesn't tell you where you would be a program manager, because program manager is just a very broad kind of job title. There are lots of different types of program managers. You could be a program manager that is kind of responsible for a concept like sustainability and fashion, or you could be a program manager that is responsible for kind of coordination of a project, and you're much more like a project manager. So I don't know. Obviously, I don't know what your job description is, Gilmary Bernal, but oh, sorry, I haven't got that up. But I would assume that you're applying for a specific role in a specific team. Okay. Oh, Oshin, I pronounced your name correctly. I lived in Dublin for 4 years. I'm married to a Dub, so it wasn't too much of a surprise. But yeah, I really humiliated myself many years ago with Grania, Oshin. It was not pretty how I pronounced that. The lady was very, very kind and forgiving. That's a war story. Okay, what else do we have? I'm going to try and get through another couple of questions, and then I'm going to give you your freebie. Okay, there's a few of you chatting to each other, which I think is lovely. Okay, yeah, Dorian. Hey, Dorian, so you had a loop 2 weeks ago and you weren't successful, but you're having an interview for a different role. Cool, so they recycled you pretty quickly. Will they share the results from the previous loop? I assume you mean. Yes, everyone who is interviewing you now will have access to the notes from the previous loop, but it can't be that bad. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been recycled and you wouldn't be being interviewed for another role so quickly. So don't worry about it. It's not going to be an issue for you. Okay. What else? I'm going to aim for maybe one more. Yeah, okay. I will do this because I think everyone will benefit from this. Thank you for this, Chad. So you're going to loop. You'd like me to explain the debrief and the processes involved in that discussion. All right. So first of all, somebody finishes interviewing you. And when they walk away from interviewing you, they have to write up their notes on the system called Hire, lots of detail about what you said and how they are interpreting what you've said. And they have to then calibrate you against the leadership principle that they were assessing you on. The calibration is a 5-point scale going from strength to some strength, to mixed, to concern, to some concern, to concern, right? Green all the way through, amber to red, okay? And they calibrate you for each of the leadership principles that they interviewed you for. And then they decide whether, just based on their experience in their one interview, whether they would hire you or not. And they press that button. Once that button's been pressed, they can see the votes and the information provided by anyone else who has already placed their vote. If you haven't placed your vote yet, you can't see that information. If someone else hasn't placed their vote yet, you cannot see that information. Eventually, everyone has to place their vote and put their information in before the debrief happens. And they need to read everybody else's information, ideally, before the debrief happens. Then everybody goes into the debrief with the bar raiser. Different bar raisers will run debriefs differently. Okay, everyone will have their own way of doing things. So I can't tell you what exactly every debrief looks like because you've got your own method. I'll tell you what method I used when I was debriefing, and maybe that will help. So the whole point of the debrief is to discuss the candidate and the candidate's strengths and how they might, or do they not raise the bar on the leadership principles for that particular role. So I would always find out from the hiring manager ahead of time what the most important leadership principles were. And I would prioritize discussions on those leadership principles ahead of any other leadership principle discussion. I would go in and I would just say to everybody that was there, now that you all placed your initial vote, now that you have seen everybody else's data, would anybody like to refresh their vote? And it gives people the opportunity to, having now seen all of the data provided by everybody else, whether given that incremental set of data, whether they would choose to change their vote. You don't use the word change because it's very emotive, but whether they would make a different decision now than they would back then, and everyone would revote. At that point, I would then go through each of the key leadership principles, look at the calibration that the person had given them who owned that leadership principle in the interview process, and ask the broader group, does anybody have any evidence that would either support this calibration or counter this calibration. And we would talk about that extra data. And I would say, based on the conversation that we've had, my view is we are now landing this calibration at X. And I would work through each leadership principle very methodically, because that's my nature, to be methodical, and calibrate the candidate for each of those leadership principles. Before we run out of time, I would hopefully get through the key leadership principles, and I would then reread the calibrations that we had come to as a group and said, right, based on all of this, would anybody once again like to refresh their vote? People do or don't refresh their vote. You either then get to a situation where the candidate is very obviously a hire because everyone loves them and wants to hire them, or you get to a situation where the candidate is obviously not a hire because no one thinks that they're coming in, or you have what's called a split loop, where you've got half the people that, but not necessarily half, but some of the people do this, some of the people don't. At that point, you look at the view of the hiring manager and the bar raiser, and are they aligned? And if they're aligned, whichever way it goes, that's the decision that's made. If the bar raiser and the hiring manager are not aligned, ultimately the bar raiser has to make the decision. If they don't think that the candidate is raising the bar and the hiring manager does, then the bar raiser will not let them in, and they have what's called a veto card. I've pulled my veto card a few times. If the bar raiser thinks the candidate's great, but the hiring manager doesn't, again, there's very unlikely that you're going to get in, because no bar raiser worth their salt would force a hiring manager to take somebody that they didn't want to work with, because that would be horrible for the hiring manager and horrible for the candidate. And that's it. You get to the end and then you tell the recruiter, right, this is the decision. And the recruiter goes off and tells the candidate that that's the decision. Okay, so that was a whistle-stop tour of my debriefs. As I say, different people do run it differently. So that's not going to be exactly the experience that sits on that side of the table for every single candidate. Okay, so we are now out of time. So please don't go, because you will regret going if you do. So I'm going to, please go to the Amazon Interview Wiz Academy. I never get this the right way around. AmazonInterviewWizAcademy.com. You can get my Customer Obsession Masterclass completely free. There's just seriously no reason not to. It tells you the 4 facets of customer obsession. Each leadership principle has multiple facets to it. I've kind of created this concept of facets. It's unique to me as a mechanism for helping you understand the nuances of the leadership principles. It tells you pretty much exactly what your interviewer is looking for in your customer obsession answer. So universal gnome, go get that seriously. And there's a mock interview of me interviewing me. It's gold. It's totally free. I'm not going to chase you for, with marketing. Most of these freebies are about getting your email address. I don't do that. I give it to you as a gift. Obviously, I'd love you to love it and buy the rest of my courses. But you know what? If you don't, then please take it. I hope you get great use of it. Pretty much 90% of you will get asked customer obsession at some point if you make it all the way through. So if I'm going to give stuff for free, I at least give people stuff that they're going to be useful for free. It's a bit like giving gifts. If you buy a gift that you like, but the other person doesn't like, that's a complete waste of your money. So I try and give gifts that are actually going to be useful to people, and then I'm not wasting my money. All right. So on that note, I'm going to let you all go. I'm going to go and have my dinner now. Thank you so much for joining. Such a great crowd. Amazing questions. I'm so sorry I didn't get through all of them. I will be back again on Monday, so please do come back on Monday. If you have burning questions before then, you can always drop them into the comments on my YouTube channel, and I will attempt to answer them within about 24 or 48 hours. If you do watch my content, please, as I said, put a comment in, give it a thumbs up. Don't ask what Gigi can do for you, but what you can do for Gigi. It's a give, receive, give back type of thing I'm aiming for here with my community. So until I see you again, please be safe. Good luck with your interviews if you have any coming up. Bye-bye.